Good morning. I am Sudheshna Sarkar, a research scholar at Ranchi University. Under the guidance and mentorship of Dr. Jayanta Kumar Chakravarti, a Faculty of Commerce Associate Professor at St. Xavier's College, Ranchi, I would like to present my paper on the influence of economic growth, carbon emissions, and health expenditure on sustainable energy, a case study of the BRICS nations. Introduction. The environment is vital for supporting the various inputs for production. Over the last decades, there has been an increasing concern about the effects of economic activity on the environment. Many structural shifts towards the information intensive industries, services with increased environmental awareness and environmental regulation and higher environmental expenditure resulted in reduction and a gradual decline in environmental degradation. This was given by Penio in 1995. Literature review. According to Amin et al., his research explores the relationship between energy, poverty, employment, education, and economic development using panel data from South Asian countries. Khan et al. 2021, his study explores the relationship between health spending, renewable energy usage, economic growth in the 11 Central European nations. Umar et al. Intends to look into the relationship between China's CO2 emissions and their potential drivers. So, most of the reviews and the studies which have been conducted are based on European nations, OECD countries, but very little has been investigated about the BRICS nations as a whole and the trend of renewable energy, environmental quality, and economic expansion in the BRICS is explored. For the past 18 years, I have tried to explore it in this paper. So, the present study uses panel data methodology for BRICS countries, which we know includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Over a period of time from 2020 to 2000 to 2018, and to analyze the nexus between the variables renewable energy, health expenditure, carbon emissions, FDI, GDP. And the data I have tried to retrieve from World Development Indicators of WHO and the database of International Monetary Fund. So my baseline model is given over here. Renewable energy expenditure is a function of health expenditure, carbon emissions, FDI, and GDP. So that is equal to alpha 0 plus alpha 1 health expenditure, alpha 2 carbon emissions, alpha 3 FDI, alpha 4 GDP, and some error terms. So I have described my variables in this data. As you can see, renewable energy expenditure, I have taken it as a proxy for green energy consumption, and I've taken this data from inner data. And then health expenditure, it is a proxy for health expenditure, government expenditure on health, taken from International Monetary Fund. And carbon emissions, FDI and GDP. FDI and GDP represents economic growth and development. Carbon emissions represent the pollution or degradation of the air quality. These two data I have taken from World Development Indicators. Here are the descriptive statistics for the same. The mean, as we can see, that renewable expenditure is 27. The carbon emissions is the highest, as we can see over here. GDP growth and the normality test, the Jacob-Berra normality test shows that the data is all non-significant, which is it is normal. The residuals are normal. The correlation estimates, if we look here at the correlation estimates between the variables, then we can see that FDI is highly correlated, GDP has 27% correlation with renewable, and health expenditure has got a high correlation with renewable expenditure, and FDI has 8% correlation with the renewable expenditure. So firstly, to test my panel data, I conducted a panel unit root test to see if the data is stationary or not. At level, when I checked, I saw that there was the probability of distribution, the probability statistics gave me a value, probability value of greater than 0.05, which showed that at level my data was not stationary. So I did the first differencing, and after the first differencing, these are the results which is there on the screen. The Levin, Liu and Chu test, it is significant. Then the Pesarin and Shinwat test and ADF Fisher test and PP test all gave me a significant result. So now at first degree differentiation, I can say that my data is stationary. It was not stationary at level. So I took the first degree differentiation and made it stationary. Then after that, I estimated the vector error correction model, which shows that there is a long run estimate and relationship between the variables. So the long run estimate and relationship between the variables, I did the Pesarin test. For the long run estimate, I did the Pedroni test. So co-integration test. So co-integration test, I took two co-integration tests, one given by Pedroni. So in this, I can see under the Pedroni test, so the panel PP test is significant, the panel ADF test is significant. So and the group PP test is significant and the group ADF test is also significant. So there are, out of all the results, there are 5 tests which gave me a significant result where the p-value is less than 0.05, which shows that there is a co-integration among the variables. So then again, I took the Johansson-Fisher co-integration test to find out whether there is a co-integration among the variables. So over here, at none, the probability value was less than 0.05, which shows the trace test and the maximum eigen test gave me a significant result, which showed the Fisher test showed me that the results are, the variables are co-integrated. So after finding out the results of co-integrated, I found out the Granger causality nexus. So these are the results of the Granger causality nexus which I have done. In that, I saw that the variables are correlated, but however, the expenditure on health expenditure and carbon emissions represented a significant correlationship. This means that the increase in the carbon emissions caused decrease, or whenever the carbon emissions were less, over here I can see that there is a negative relationship between carbon emissions and renewable expenditure. So it means that a decrease in carbon emissions caused an increase in renewable expenditure. So these are the estimates which I have founded. Thank you. Conclusion. The results of this investigation reveal that there has been an increase in the growth in FDI and it has positively influenced the renewable energy consumption in the 5 nations. And based on the results of the model, important policy implications for energy and economic development in BRICS are presented. Government needs to restrain from using non-renewable energy consumption as it leads to higher environmental degradation. The multinational companies have an efficient network for maintaining environmental standards, both locally and globally, and such standardized practices tend to help host countries to overcome environmental issues. Thank you.